This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Ever live in a frat house? Now, I don't mean one of those yuppie ones you see on TV sometimes, where all the guys dress in loafers and call each other Biff. I mean a real frat house, with vermin-infested laundry heaped next to stacks of pizza boxes, last year's New Year's Eve decorations rotting off the ceiling, and some excuse for a housemaid affectionately referred to as the Mooch. But at Delta Delta Pylon, we just called him Lester. Well into his 5th year majoring in primitive basket arts, Lester survived by stealing the last slice of pizza here, pilfering a couple of clean socks there, and using whatever shampoo, shaving cream, and deodorant some other frat brother was fool enough to leave unguarded. We even wondered if he owned his own toothbrush. But soon after Christmas one year, when Lester had already thieved, pinched, and scoffed every shortbread cookie, mincemeat tart, and dried-up old fruitcake care package he could find, the cupboards suddenly went bare. You see, most of the Deltas took to sleeping with their food supplies, which made midnight snacking a bit of a trick for Lester. Even his ability to belch Einstein's theory of relativity failed to convince the others he was worth tossing a stale donut to. Lester might have been okay. He might have restrained himself. But then he heard this sound coming from way down in the kitchen. Someone was sifting through the pots and pans, rummaging through the cupboards, making the electric can opener moan and wheeze and grind. He knew instantly. The drooling of his mouth and the twitching of his nose told Lester that Roger was making his famous tuna, wiener, and leftovers casserole. It was never exactly the same twice, but always sure to please him. Late that night, Lester snuck downstairs, deftly stepping over Bud in the front hall, who hadn't quite made it up to his bed after a night of revelry, and slipped into the pitch black of the kitchen. The refrigerator hadn't had a working light bulb since Fred the freshman ate the last one as a hazing ritual. But this didn't deter Lester. No, he knew the insides of that treasure chest of pilferable plunder like the back of his thieving hand. He identified the jumbo mustard in an instant, shoved it aside to seize the yogurt container behind, and sat right down on the cold, hard linoleum to enjoy his filched feast. The tuna was a little mushier than usual, the weenies a little bit on the gamey side, and there were the odd crunchy bits Lester assumed were over-microwaved meatball crust, but delicious nonetheless. In moments, Lester had gobbled the last of his lifted midnight snack and was back in his bed so fast the albacore aftertaste had yet to fade. Happy, content, if only he had known. Hours later, all seemed fine. Loitering around the kitchen next morning in the hopes of abandoned breakfast scraps, Lester's fellow frats went about their business and didn't suspect a thing. Even Roger had rummaged through the near-empty refrigerator for nearly 5 minutes in search of a banana he put there last spring and never noticed his missing tuna a la king. Lester was sure his crime would go undetected when suddenly Irving, the pre-med, hauled himself into the kitchen, stuck his head in the fridge, and started to scream. Where was his lab container? Where were his rats' heads? Those mealworms had been cleaning the brains out of those skulls for days, and they were almost done. But it was only when Lester spotted Roger's leftovers container sticking out of his knapsack that it really sunk in what he'd done. He made a meal of mealworms. He crunched on rat craniums. He noshed on rodent nuggets. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Lester still lives at the frat, of course. But now he majors in macrobiotics with a minor in long-term fasting.